A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Glad you're with me on the program today. Going to be talking with Joe LoPorto from the New Jersey Firearms Owner Syndicate here in just a moment or two. We are a week away from Election Day. You may very well have like local elections where you live. In Virginia, where I live, every seat in the House of Delegates is up for grabs. Although, let's be honest, most of those seats are not competitive, but there are a few swing districts. We also, of course, have the governor's race, attorney general's race, and the lieutenant governor's race in Virginia. New Jersey, also off-year elections, including a very important governor's race. In fact, one that appears to be virtually neck and neck right now between Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican candidate, and Jackie Sherrill, the Democratic candidate. You've got a red flag referendum up in the state of Maine, where Democratic Governor Janet Mills has come out in opposition to that red flag proposal, but anti-gun forces putting a lot of money into that pro-red flag campaign there in the state of Maine. So I wanted to focus on what's going on in New Jersey, because this to me is really interesting. As I said, the race between Jack Ciattarelli and Jackie Sherrill, very, very close. Jack Ciattarelli 4 years ago came within just a couple of points of unseating the incumbent, Phil Murphy. This is now an open seat, and Ciattarelli appears to be doing just as well, if not better, than he was doing 4 years ago. And I think it is a real possibility that Ciattarelli wins a week from today. Joe LoPorto from the New Jersey Firearms Owner Syndicate feels the same way. But as he told me, gun owners, well, they need to get out. We need to get out, not only and vote, but ensure that everybody we know is voting as well. Take a look and a listen. Joe, thanks very much for coming on the program. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Cam.
All right. We are 1 week away from Election Day. I'm dealing with this in Virginia where I live. You're dealing with this in New Jersey. And I mean, I hate to say it, but I feel better about the chances of a relatively pro-Second Amendment candidate winning in New Jersey than I do in Virginia when it comes to the governor's race this year.
Yeah, it certainly appears to be sort of like a role reversal this year. I think early on in the year, there was a lot of folks thinking that the Virginia race was going to be a lot tighter and more competitive, and that New Jersey was, perhaps a little bit of a lost cause. But certainly, though, that situation is completely inverted at this point.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, when you look at the polling, and I realize, polls are imperfect in their nature, but Jack Ciattarelli is within the margin of error in a lot of these polls. In fact, he even led one poll that I saw recently.
Yeah. So if we look at the real, bearing in mind that, when we're talking about state races, we don't quite get the level of polling intensity that you get in a national presidential race. So
right.
The margin of error, I would think, would be wider as a general matter with state elections than they would be with a large national election. But if we just went off the Real Clear Politics average as of this morning, it's down to just a little over 3 points in the New Jersey race. And similarly, in comparison to Virginia, that number is looking more like double digits in Virginia. So we are inside the margin of error, and there's a lot of reasons to be sort of hopeful and excited. There's been some very encouraging developments in voter trends in the state, and I'm happy to report that we played a fairly large part in all of that. We've been working side by side with Early Vote Action all year, and we've seen that play out. The number of registered Republicans in the state since 2021, since the last gubernatorial race, has increased by 200,000 registered Republicans. So that's a very, very encouraging number. If we look at the GOP turnout in the primary, it was roughly 34% higher than it was in 2021. Now, we had a little bit more of a competitive primary this year, and at some points a contentious primary, although, when the dust settled, Jack Ciattarelli emerged as the clear winner. It was heated, but not ultimately contentious in the actual vote turnout. But the bottom line is that the strong turnout in the primary, I think, is a good indicator. And perhaps the most encouraging thing that we're seeing right now is the sort of early return data coming out of the sort of early vote that's coming in some of the key districts around the state. some of the more competitive, legislative districts, we're seeing, as far as the vote by mail returns, we're seeing anywhere from 20 to 40% of that GOP vote by mail return coming from low propensity, what we call 1x4 voters, meaning those are voters that typically vote only in presidential elections. So if we're seeing those low prop voters turn out, and again, these are just early indicators, and it's,
Right.
we'll see how the rest of this election cycle is going to play out. Thankfully, there's only 1 week left. It's been a grind since January for us anyway.
Yeah.
And I am personally on the ground today. As soon as I'm done here on your show, I'm heading back out the door, and we are canvassing in some of these key districts. We are phone banking tonight, so there's a ton of work yet to be done. But there is reason to be very, very hopeful. Some of the most recent polls that have come in are showing this, as you say, either a coin flip or maybe 1 point in the favor of the Democrats right now. Like, this is winnable. I think we just have to dig in and dig deep. And I wouldn't give up hope either in Virginia. The Democrats are making a lot of noise. They're trying to make this about national politics. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to the voters to decide what matters to them. There's local and state issues, or whether we're going to be distracted by the noise in Washington, D.C. at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's right. And, I'm looking here at the latest Virginia polls. Actually, you've got a couple that show it a little bit tighter than what the Real Clear Politics average has. Real Clear Politics polling average has Spanberg up by 7 points. She's over 50%. That's not great news. But you're right. I mean, I am still holding out hope. I think the Attorney General's race in Virginia is very competitive. I think Jason Miyares, the Republican incumbent, is actually leading a lot of polls now because of Jay Jones, the Democrat nominee, and his text messages talking about how he would like to see, 2 bullets to the head of the former Speaker of the House, and, wishing death upon Todd Gilbert's children in order to advance a gun control agenda. I think that is having an impact. Even in the lieutenant governor's race, the polling that I've seen shows that's tightening up as well. For whatever reason, Winsome Earl-Sears campaign is lagging behind the Miyares and John Reed campaign. We can, get into that maybe after the election is over. But yeah, I don't want to discourage any Virginia gun owner from getting out and voting. I mean, that's absolutely incumbent. We need to get out there, and we know what happens when Virginia gun owners do turn out. We can sweep statewide elections. That's why we have a Republican Attorney General, a Republican Lieutenant Governor, a Republican Governor in what was thought to be a blue state, right? A state that Donald Trump lost twice. Actually 3 times, but Republicans can win statewide in Virginia. We know how to do it. And, it's turning out wherever you are. It's not just, racking up big wins in rural counties where I live, but, flipping those suburban seats, big turnout in Northern Virginia to cut into the Democratic advantage. And I'm sure the same thing is true in New Jersey. Again, it's a matter of turnout, right? About getting those numbers out. And it doesn't matter if you live in, Paramus, New Jersey, right? Or, in a deep blue part of the state, you getting out and voting, it matters.
Absolutely.
Because, you may be surrounded by liberals and think, my vote doesn't count. In a statewide election, it absolutely counts, right? So it is so critically important that everybody get out there and cast their vote this year.
And I will say, if we look at sort of history, 6 of the last 9 governors in the state of New Jersey have been Republicans. So us getting sort of cast as a blue state, I think, is always a bit inaccurate. This is a state that has oscillated between the parties. So it has always been a bit different here. But what I will say, if history is any predictor, when Republicans win, it is close. It is in our history. Tom Keene Sr. was probably one of the most popular governors the state's ever had. When he won his second term, he took something like over 80% of the vote, right? Ronald Reagan type numbers. But in his first election, for his first term, he won that race by 1,500 votes.
Wow.
Wow. So that's how close these races can be, and getting every single vote at this point, it really matters. I mean, we have been stressing the importance, and Scott Pressler in Early Vote Action has been amazing, and the amount of work and groundwork they've been doing since January has been amazing here. But stressing the importance of early voting. Gun owners are a fickle crowd when it comes to this issue, just like a lot of other conservative groups. There's maybe a little bit of skepticism and resentment as it relates to early voting and some of the tactics that our opponents are using with regards to that. But the key message here is we're not going to win unless we embrace it. What would Republicans do if we had complete control of both houses and a Republican governor? Probably the first order of business would be to change a lot of the early voting, sort of features, let's just say, especially as it relates to vote by mail.
Mm-hmm.
But unless we embrace that, we have to play by those rules in order to win, and then we can implement the change that we want to have. I think that's the key here, because it's as simple as this. We are putting so much energy into getting the vote out at this point. The moment you vote early, it's like your name drops off all of our list and it's one less number to call. So we have a smaller and smaller pile of voters to chase down on election day. And our friends at the NRA are doing the same exact thing, right? They are running through their member lists and trying to get everyone out to vote. When those voters vote early, it lets us focus on just the low propensity component, as opposed to those quote unquote bankable voters. Your listeners, our members, NRA members, we care about the political environment that we live in. And so we're active and we're going to vote. The sooner you vote, though, it allows us to shift our priorities and focus on other voters who might not be so quick to get out to the polls. So we need at this stage, we need to be as small a list as possible. And so voting early is critical. And I would also remind everyone there's a pretty big race in Pennsylvania right now, too. And gun owners who care should be voting no on retention in the Pennsylvania election. So there's a lot at stake right now, in some pretty key parts of the country. It's an off year, but we just got to stay focused and get through the finish line at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you've got a red flag referendum on the ballot in Maine. And that's another big one for gun owners. But, I want to go back to what you just talked about voting early, because that is, Joe, that's the best explanation that I've ever heard as to why people should get out and vote early, right? I mean, I've heard the argument, well, you never know what's going to happen. You could plan on voting election day, then something comes up, you don't get to the polls. That's fine. But the idea that by you voting early, it actually allows groups like the New Jersey Firearms Owners Syndicate, like the NRA, to marshal its resources and not waste time or attention on you, who's going to be voting anyway, right? But to go after those low intensity and low propensity voters. That makes a heck of a lot of sense, frankly. And I hope that people will keep that in mind. Again, we're a week out, so you can still vote in both New Jersey and Virginia right now. I think Virginia's early elections are still open. We have some weird rules that window closes, and then you've got to file an absentee ballot rather than vote early. But and I'm honestly not sure what the where we are in that timeline. But it is, again, a great argument about why it's so important to vote early.
And again, this is just one election. Next year we got the midterms. It's the same mathematics, same calculus is there. Everyone needs to embrace early voting. If there's one message I could convey, and the other message I would convey, and this is even more so to our members that are listening, if you're really concerned about this election, you need to do more than vote. I mean, we're creating opportunities for grassroots activism here. People need to get involved, and it's super easy to get involved. Phone banking. If you made 20 phone calls, you did 1,000% more than the average gun owner, the average person who cares about our Second Amendment rights. You door knock in your neighborhood for an hour. You've done 1,000% more than the average person does. Use your own spheres of influence. Get your friends to vote. Get your family to vote. We need to turn the volume up in all these key places. As you said, I think Virginia is not a lost cause. I think New Jersey is winnable at this exact moment if we all put the effort in. And next year's midterm elections are going to be important too. So we just need to keep the tempo and the intensity up.
Absolutely. Remind me, or actually, I guess, educate me, Joe, because I know in Virginia, so not only do we have governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general races, but every seat in the lower house, the House of Delegates, is up for grabs this year too. Are there legislative elections in New Jersey? Is it the state house? Is it the House and the Senate that's up this year?
Yeah. So New Jersey has a somewhat unique cycle as it relates to our legislature.
Okay.
The Senate is up for the Senate has a 4-4-2 election cycle. So it's every 4 years, and every 2 years, and that's the cycle that it goes on. So this year, we have a governor's race and just the lower chamber. So all of our assembly districts are up for re-election, but the Senate is not.
Okay.
So what does that mean? If we clean house here, we would need to flip 13 assembly seats in order to retake control of the lower chamber. Is there a path to that? I think there is, but I would say at a minimum, there's probably a solid 4 or so really competitive legislative districts. And the good news that we have for gun owners is in all those districts that are very competitive, low single digit districts, we have NRA and NJFOS in A-rated endorsed candidates in those districts. So if Jack Ciattarelli creates coattails in this race, we are going to pick up good elected officials from an advocacy point of view, from our perspective, right? These are all A-rated candidates that are going to win in these competitive districts. So we've got a lot to be excited about here. But even without a Senate, I mean, the Democrats would retain control of the Senate in this election. But again, if I could make the closing argument on voting this year, we have so many court cases percolating at both the district court and the Third Circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Just simply appointing a different attorney general, given the state of play with some of those cases. If somebody else took the reins over on behalf of the state, the outcomes on these cases are radically different, both in terms of how long they're going to take and what we can expect in these cases. And so I hate to say it, but we don't actually need legislative action. We just need a change in leadership and a change in the attorney general's office, and we will clean house, but we just got to get out and vote.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? So as you say, Democrats are going to maintain control of the Senate. But if you've got a Republican governor, they can veto any gun control bills that pass. I mean, we've seen that in Virginia the last 4 years with Governor Glenn Youngkin. But also, I was going to ask about the attorney general. So that is an appointed position, unlike Virginia, which is an elected position. If Jack Ciattarelli wins and becomes the state's next governor, he gets to appoint the attorney general. And I feel pretty safe in saying it's not going to be Matt Platkin.
He has personally pledged to me that our next attorney general under Governor Jack Ciattarelli will be a pro-Second Amendment gun owner who respects the Constitution. That is a personal pledge that Jack has made to me. And at this point, I consider Jack Ciattarelli a friend, and we endorsed Jack prior to the primary. We have been with his campaign the entire year. I have a great degree of confidence that Jack is going to deliver on that promise, not just for us, but for gun owners across the state.
That is good news. And again, I mean, this is, this is a winnable race, but it is going to take gun owners in New Jersey getting out, not just voting, as Joe said, but again, encouraging others to vote. If you don't like doing that face-to-face door knocking thing, I think it's fun, but I realize it's not for everybody. Seriously, the phone banks are an easy way to reach out to voters, particularly in the last week of the election. But do what you can to help out. And you've got such a great grassroots army of Second Amendment supporters in New Jersey, Joe. We're seeing this not just in the election cycle, but with the efforts to get municipalities to refund $150 of the concealed carry fee, right, back to gun owners. This is something that started boots on the ground. Folks like yourself, John Petrolino. We have seen, I think the last time you and I talked, it was a half dozen communities, maybe a little bit more. But those are continuing as well, right?
Yeah, we are now up to 11 with 12 on the way.
That is
so.
Excellent.
We are continuing to forge ahead on that project. Clearly, that's important to us. We've got some big towns in the works right now that, touch wood, if they pass, we will have not just more towns, but larger populations, sort of liberated from these oppressive fees. And again, where are we getting our wins? I mean, we're getting them in GOP towns. So there's down ballot races this year too. We want to create coattails up and down the ballot, and I personally think we're going to see a groundswell of activity on that after the election. Either way, no matter what the outcome is, I think once the dust settles, I think in virtually every corner of the state, there's a singular focus right now, and that's certainly going to be on the election.
Yeah.
The morning of November 5th, we all sober up, from the night before, no matter what may come, and we're sort of back to work, and we have a nice quiet period, both in the legislature, and at the town level in that sort of post-November 4th. So I think we've got a lot to look forward to there. But again, stay energized, folks. Like, it really is just sweat equity and a little bit of elbow grease. It's not like we're asking for tons of money here. We just need everybody to put the effort in for this last couple of weeks here.
So if folks are watching, they live in New Jersey, they want to help out, they want to get involved, what's the best way for them to do so right now, Joe?
Oh man, super easy. Email us. I'll share my email address with every listener. It's joe@njfos.org. Super easy. If you email me, I will find a use for you. If you want to get involved, contact us and we'll get it done.
All right. Joe LoPorto, as always, my friend, thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you for everything you're doing up there in the Garden State, and onward to victory. Hopefully we'll be able to talk some great news the next time we have you on the show.
Looking forward to it, Cam.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Take care, sir.
My thanks to Joe for joining me on the program. Again, I really was impressed with that argument about early voting, because I'm not one who likes early voting. I guess I'm just a traditionalist. I like going on election day. I get up in the morning. I typically I'll write my first story for Bearing Arms, give myself a little bit of a window of opportunity, maybe my first two stories. I will run up. My polling place is about 10 minutes away. Again, I live in rural Virginia. There really aren't ever any lines to vote, so I can get in and out of there in 5 or 6 minutes. It's at the local library, so it's not a big deal. But I like that experience of voting on election day. But I never really considered, am I actually hindering the get out the vote efforts by Second Amendment groups by waiting until election day to vote? So I think I might be changing my voting pattern this year. All right, let's move on to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, our recidivist report. We'll start there with a case out of Iowa. I don't know if this is a true recidivist report. I don't know if this guy has a previous criminal history, but again, it's just one of those what's going on sentences that kind of rankled me. Coralville man pleads guilty to reckless use of a firearm in 2024, shooting that injured two. And as a result of that guilty plea, again, that injured two people, 24-year-old Isaiah Polson may actually avoid any jail time at all. He pled guilty to participating in a riot, which is a Class D felony in Iowa, as well as reckless use of a firearm that caused property damage, which is an aggravated misdemeanor. According to the Iowa City Press Citizen, Polson admitted that he discharged a firearm in a reckless manner, resulting in property damage to 3 downtown businesses, and assembled with, quote, 3 or more persons in a violent manner early in the morning of July 20th, 2024. He was arrested on August 2nd of last year. At that time, had also been charged with reckless use of a firearm causing bodily injury, going armed with intent, assault while displaying a dangerous weapon, and assault with intent to inflict serious injury, but those charges all dismissed as part of his plea. According to law enforcement, Polson, quote, engaged in an altercation with 2 other individuals in the downtown area, then left the scene, came back with a gun shortly before 1 a.m., He then allegedly pulled and discharged the firearm, quote, in a reckless manner. He allegedly shot at and then, quote, pistol whipped an unnamed individual and an unarmed individual who attempted to disarm him. One of the rounds that Polson fired also allegedly struck another unarmed individual. Another bullet penetrated a taco cart and grazed an employee's hand. Polson was set to go to trial today, as a matter of fact. But as part of the guilty plea, prosecutors will recommend that Polson receive a suspended sentence and be placed on probation, which will allow him to avoid jail time if he complies with the terms of his probation. I don't know what led prosecutors to do this. First of all, it doesn't sound like this was in self-defense. even if Polson was not the initial aggressor, right? Because again, according to police, he engaged in an altercation with 2 other individuals. Okay, well, let's say that those 2 other individuals assaulted Polson. He left the area. At that point, the threat to his life was over. He got a gun, came back to the scene, confronted these individuals, and then discharged his firearm. That's not self-defense. And I don't think that Polson would have been successful arguing self-defense. So, I mean, unless there were just issues with every eyewitness, including the victims who were shot in this case, I don't know what would prompt prosecutors to offer such a slanted deal that favors Polson. Now again, should Polson have gone away for the rest of his life? Probably not. But he shot 2 people. Granted, one of them was a graze. And according to law enforcement, maybe he didn't intend to shoot the individuals who were wounded. But he did. And he fired those shots with the intent to harm somebody. He also allegedly pistol whipped somebody who tried to take the gun away from him. So there's a third count of assault. I don't get a plea deal that allows him to walk away with nothing more than probation. Even if he has spent from August 2nd of last year until October 24th of this year behind bars, that's just, to me, not enough time for the violent offenses that he is accused of committing. All right, on to today's armed citizen story. Now, this one, this is, I said the other day, I don't generally take joy in defensive gun uses because at the end of the day, these armed citizens are people who experience a legitimate threat to their lives. That's not really something to celebrate, even if we can, be happy that they were able to protect themselves. I will say, though, there are times where part of me says, you know what, these folks got what was coming to them. And this is one of those cases. Intruder shot and stabbed during failed downtown Charleston robbery. And actually, this was, I think I would describe this as a home invasion. WCSC in Charleston, South Carolina reports 26-year-old Keontae Haynes, 21-year-old Christopher Lorenzo Connor, both arrested after they were found wounded inside of a home. Haynes has been charged with armed robbery with a deadly weapon, assault and battery in the first degree burglary. The 21-year-old Connor, meanwhile, charged with armed robbery, assault and battery in the first degree, burglary in the first degree, as well as possession of a weapon while committing a violent crime. The incident happened on Sunday. Police responded to a report of a shooting that happened inside of a home. It was about noon on Sunday. It's broad daylight. Officers arrived at the scene. They found one suspect inside the home with a non-life-threatening gunshot wound to the arm. A second suspect found at another residence suffering from a stab wound to the neck. Both individuals taken to local hospitals there in Charleston. And as they investigated, detectives say that they determined that Haynes and Connor had forcefully entered this home on South Inston Avenue in an attempt to rob the residents and the individuals inside. Instead, the people inside the home, quote, disarmed and wounded both men. One of the residents did report being grazed by a bullet while disarming one of the home invaders. Early investigations say that Haynes and Connor knew the victims. Haynes already under the supervision of the South Carolina Department of Probation, Parole, and Pardon, although I'm not sure why. According to the TV station in Charleston, both men have now been released from the hospital booked Monday night into the local detention center where they were being held pending a bond hearing. So it sounds like the residents inside may have been able to get the gun away from one of the armed robbers, but I suspect that the knife was already on hand. I could be wrong about that. Either way, though, these individuals facing charges, the individuals inside the home not facing any charges for acting in lawful self-defense. And finally today, our good deed of the day in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. A retired firefighter in Worcester, Massachusetts, who braved a burning home to save the occupant inside. No longer getting paid to do this, but just did it of his own free will. John Yashinsky, without hesitation, took off without any protective gear. Didn't even have his shoes on. But he knew that there was a woman still inside this home on the street where he lived. He said, I was able to go in and grab her and get her out of the building and into the yard. He said it became so dark and so difficult to actually see through. He said, I was actually trying to lay on the ground, seeing if I could see anyone else or even see where the fire was. Worcester firefighters arrived at the home shortly after he was able to get that woman outside. Neighbors said that they were seen removing a scorched couch from the home as paramedics tended to the woman as well as Mr. Yashinsky. Yashinsky also in the past has received an honor for saving a 14-year-old girl who had been shot. He said, this is more of just trying to help my community. He said, it's why I became a firefighter when I did. And he says through his years in the military, years as a firefighter, he says helping people is just in his nature. He says it's just a reaction to do what is necessary to help people. He was taken to a local hospital for smoke inhalation. Woman inside the home also taken to the local hospital, but both she and Yashinsky are doing well, according to Channel 7 News in Boston. And again, in the right place, at the right time, willing able to do the right thing, without hesitation. John Yashinsky there in Worcester, Mass., we thank you for your very, very good deed. Now, speaking of Massachusetts, on tomorrow's Cam & Company, we're going to be talking with Jim Wallace from the Gun Owners Action League. Some great news. Jim texted me Monday night. I've got a story about it. It was the first thing I wrote at Bearing Arms Tuesday morning. Kyle Kulata, the Air Force veteran who has been jailed for the past 4 months for possessing firearms that he legally purchased and legally owned in Arizona, but did not have a license for in Massachusetts because Kyle Kulata was essentially living out of his car. Had, just gotten to the state of Massachusetts. He was on his way and his girlfriend to stay with her parents or her family. Pulled over for a traffic violation. He tells the officer, hey, I've got these firearms in the car. He ends up getting arrested. Held without bond under the state's dangerousness statute for simply possessing firearms without a permit in Massachusetts. 4 months Kyle Kulata spent in jail. He was finally freed on Monday afternoon. Now that he's still facing charges, he's got a pretrial hearing actually coming up in early December. We're going to get the latest from Jim Wallace from the Gun Owners Action League, and I'm just so relieved to know that Kyle Kulata, after months behind bars for exercising his Second Amendment rights, was able to embrace his girlfriend, able to sleep in a room without bars last night. And again, we're going to get an update from Jim on tomorrow's Bearing Arms Cam & Company. Be sure to check out BearingArms.com throughout the day today, though we're keeping you up to date on all of the latest Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation. If you like what you see, I would also encourage you to become a VIP Gold, or VIP Platinum member at Town Hall. If you use the promo code POTUS47, you'll get 74% off your VIP, your VIP Gold, your VIP Platinum membership. You get all kinds of great benefits no matter which tier of support you choose. And again, no matter which tier of support you choose, I want to thank you because your support matters. It allows us to keep doing what we're doing at Bearing Arms. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of your 2A Tuesday. I'll see you on Newsmax tonight in the 6 p.m. Eastern hour with Carl Higbee. And I'll see you back here tomorrow for the Wednesday Hump Day edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. Until then, be well, be safe, and be free.